This is the Horse Radio Network.
This is episode 258 of the Dressage Radio Show on the Horse Radio Network, brought to you by Benefab and Equestrian Collections.
This is Reese Koffler-Stanfield from Georgetown, Kentucky.
And this is Philip Parks from Fergus, Ontario, and you're listening to the Dressage Radio Show with our producer, Glenn.
Hi, guys.
I can't remember the last time we had Glenn with us. Yeah.
I know, we're all together. It's so exciting. We're all together now. I missed all my boys. What can I say?
I saw Reese a couple weeks ago, though, so I did have a little fill of Reese.
We had a big time.
Right. Yeah.
We had a lovely time.
I wasn't there, and yeah.
Oh, it was very sad.
One of us, I think.
I still need to get Glenn and Philip in the same location because they have never met in person. So this has to happen. Maybe next year we'll figure this out. But I have a very funny story about our barbecue the other day.
Uh-oh.
No, it was good. We had a great time.
Yes, thank you for inviting us over, by the way.
We had a really good time, but it was a very funny story. And I think everybody can sort of feel where I'm going with this. And I have a new gentleman. He's not that new. He's worked for me about 5 months. But we have a language barrier. And I now tell everybody who wants to work in the horse industry that they need to speak Spanish. Because I have limited French capability, which is what I took in high school. And I have better German capability, but I have zero Spanish capability. So the week, and we were working really hard to get the farm ready for Glenn and Jennifer's visit, and we had our thin line buddies come over as well. So we had a nice dinner planned, and that week I had said to Jose, I said, Jose, I have this patio furniture that I would like. If you would like it, I would like to give you the patio furniture. And I didn't think that he was going to take the patio furniture that day. But he did. So I wake up in the morning and I go out and get ready for our barbecue with Glenn and Jennifer. And there's no patio furniture because Jose has it is my fault as the manager that I did not think that there was no patio furniture. So then it became, what am I going to do for this barbecue that I technically have my boss coming over and I have no patio furniture? So Glenn and Jennifer were wonderful
hosts. What were you thinking, giving away your patio furniture with no
I meant in the future to take.
She forgot to clarify a date.
Didn't really.
I feel for this guy. I mean, if somebody gives me something,
I would never.
You take it before they change their mind.
Yes,
about it.
He's a wonderful worker, and it was very funny. And so Glenn and Jennifer were very kind. We ate on a card table in our gazebo, and that card table, Glenn, is still set up because we have no patio furniture.
It was perfect.
So
it was a beautiful night.
It's some patio furniture, Reese.
That's right.
But it was very funny, and so now it's still there because we still get a kick out of it. But he has wonderful patio furniture, and we will eventually replace it. But Glenn and Jennifer were wonderful sports, and we had a great time at Rolex and a good laugh on that, and it was a great weekend.
Of listeners there and hang out together for a little while, which was nice.
That was great fun. We walked the course a little bit, and it was a really, and Rolex this year was just beautiful weather, and we've actually had beautiful weather up here thankfully, because I think we all needed it. So I don't know about you.
I will,
Philip.
I will throw this in though, Philip.
Reese,
between the two of us, can either one of us raise our hand and say we watched Dressage?
No.
Me either.
You didn't.
Didn't watch
Guys.
one test.
No,
what were you doing?
Shopping.
Shopping.
Yeah, no kidding.
I was shopping.
I have an excuse. I'm a horse husband. We don't do dressage. And I was working.
Right,
we did shows there and everything, but we were there for cross country day and jumping.
So was I. I was there for both of those. I have to be honest. I mean, I coach a lot of adventures, so I kind of watched a little bit just because I like to know sort of what my competition in quotation marks are doing. But I'm not. I mean, unless I'm actually coaching someone, it's not really my interest. But it is a great shopping day because everyone's watching.
I'm a dressage person, so I just want to clarify that.
It's terrifying.
It's not just me. You know what? It is sad there. I will say this. It is sad at Rolex. We had 36,000 people come out for cross country day this year, and I was close to a record, I think.
Yeah, I think they broke it actually.
Yeah, it was a little less than there were almost 50,000 that came out for WEG, so it was up there. And there were a lot of people there on Friday of Dressage Day, but there were 15 people in the stands. They were all shopping. It was all shopping.
It was a lot of shopping.
Everybody was shopping.
Yeah, it's become a
That's a
local
shame.
tradition a little bit to go shopping. So the vendors did well. But it was also raining too, Glenn.
Yeah,
it did
was
rain
kinda
on
raining.
Friday.
Yes.
Yeah, it got rainy and cold actually on
Now,
that
we
Friday.
won't mention that the entire half the stadium you could have sat under a roof, but
True,
we won't
true.
mention
Yeah.
that.
But it was cold and rainy.
You're
so
just
I think
making excuses now.
Yeah, I think if anybody was going to go, I didn't go.
On the other hand, I was looking at the coverage out of badminton in England, which is a 4-star event, and it's huge over there, and it's
Yes.
absolutely beautiful, big castle, the whole thing. I mean, it's just beautiful. They get 120,000 people to come out. And in the rural country roads of England, they show up to see this thing. And I was watching some of the dressage, a little bit of the dressage on video, and the stands were empty. And they showed the shopping venue, and you could not
Fact.
walk.
See,
I was
exactly.
Same thing.
Everyone's
Yeah,
got that.
same
Everyone's
thing.
got their thing. So yes, I got some new boots, and I mean, we had a big time, and it's fun to take everybody from the barn and have a good time at Rolex and see all the new products, and we enjoyed it. So I got some fun things for sure. So yeah, and
Reese,
Philip.
tell me how was your race day? How was the Oaks last week?
Oh, the Oaks. Oh, the Oaks were so fun. Yeah, it is really 2 weeks of a lot of things going on here in Kentucky and a lot of people that come into town. So it's great fun and we really enjoy it, but we really have to get our rest built up before Rolex because you don't really rest until after Derby and Oaks. But usually Philip and Meredith come down and we have a great time, but they didn't come this year and hopefully next year. But Oaks was great. We got some tickets on the new party deck, which was fabulous. You're going to love it, Philip. And it was great.
I like
It
the
was
sounds of the party
great.
deck.
The
Yeah, that
party
has the
deck
right
was
name, doesn't it, Philip?
lovely. Yeah, it was really
Right up
nice.
my alley.
Not very crowded. It's the way to go. So if anybody wants to go to the Oaks, which is the day before the Derby, and the First Lady, please listen to, she came on last year and talked about the Derby and Oaks, and she also is an avid dressage rider, the First Lady of Kentucky, Jane Bashir. And so everybody pinks out for her charity, which is Horses and Hope. So everybody wears pink, and it's a big deal that it goes to breast cancer research. And so I, of course, wore pink, and I spoke to Glenn in the morning a little bit from the tailgating, which was fun. And I didn't win any money on the Oaks, but I'm not a huge gambler when it comes to horses.
Hey, my girlfriend won the race, though.
Rosie, she was
Rosie.
wonderful.
I
Oh,
love
she
Rosie.
was lovely and just rode a fabulous race, and she had a lot of
Kentucky's
pressure.
Oaks is for the Phillies, right? That's
For the Phillies,
Yeah.
that's
also
right.
why everybody's
For the
wearing
girls.
pink.
Rosie
So-
McGravnick. And then the
It's
next
just-
day, Rosie
yeah.
rode last in the Kentucky
Yeah.
Derby.
I
That
was
was
sad
a
to see
big. That was a
Derby.
tough race. Yeah, that was a tough race, and yeah, it was a tough
You
race.
know,
So
the California Chrome, the whole story
That's a
behind
lovely
that.
story.
I just so hope because of the story, we need a Triple Crown with this story.
whoa.
We
So
really-
Glenn, just tell everybody the story if you didn't watch the
well,
Kentucky
I mean,
Derby.
these guys are, they own like 3-4 horses, and the trainer has been a trainer. He's one of those lifelong trainers
Mm-hmm.
just struggling to get through, and he's 77 years old. He actually came and was in 1955, he was the exercise rider for Swaps in 1955. Jennifer's so excited
no
about that.
kidding. I hear Jennifer in the
Yes,
background.
and Swaps
Coach
was a
Jen.
real big name in 1955. Won the Derby, and he was the exercise rider, and hadn't been back since. He's 77
Wow.
years old and comes back in and wins the Derby with this just amazing horse.
Yeah, but if you watch
You got
that
a lot
horse
of
walk,
speed. Yeah,
yeah, it's got a lot of
very
speed.
quick
But
horse.
if you look at that horse walk, you're like, what's happening with that thing? I mean, it is
His legs are
it's
weird.
weird.
Yeah, it is kind
It
of
is weird. I saw it walk and I was like, oh wow. And they've been given a lot of, they didn't spend a lot of money and
No,
made it
they
to
bought
the
this.
Derby.
They got this horse
Yeah, they
basically
bought
like $7,500 or $10,000 or something.
Yeah, it was like 10 grand. It was cheap. So, and they got him and because it walks so weird. But it's very exciting. And I think the same thing, it does happen in dressage as well. You have some fabulous horses that, of course, a lot of people spend a lot of money on horses, which, as trainers, Philip and I are always happy to hear. But there are stories of, I have one in my barn, and we did not spend a lot of money on her, and she has required a lot of sleepless nights, but it can be done to get an FEI horse on a budget. So it can happen in dressage as well, and it's
all
very
about heart.
fun. Yeah, it's all about heart. And they believed in that horse, and I'm a firm believer.
Good training. Obviously, the trainer's done a great job.
Good trainer believing in that horse. That trainer believed in that horse from the beginning. And there's a lot to be said about that. So very exciting. So it's been a wonderful couple weeks here in Kentucky. So anybody who wants to partake in Rolex and Derby, send me an email, reese@horseradionetwork.com, and I'll help you get your Kentucky 2 weeks in. So love it. And
all right,
Philip,
well, we're about to get started. What's going on with the show today? I guess Glenn can tell us a little bit.
Well, our first guest, I can tell you about our first guest.
Okay.
We have Darlene Ricker with us, who's out of Lexington, Kentucky. And she is a writer and a reporter, and she actually worked for Alltech during the 2010 games in Kentucky. She ran their magazine that was all about the WEG, and she had the opportunity to head over to France and see all of the venues that are going to be used for the WEG coming up here at the end of the summer. And she is going to give us a report on all the different venues. I got an opportunity to do this interview with Helena of the Stable Scoop Radio Show. So we're going to hear all about the different, and what's different about this, the WEG in France, is that these venues are spread out. Some of them are an hour apart. So it's a completely different experience than we had at the WEG, where it was all contained in 1,400 acres at the park. So she really does give us a good overview of what things are like in France for the WEG coming up.
Excellent. And after that, I had a chance to talk with dressage writer Catherine Haddad. We wanted an opportunity to talk about her blog that she writes, and very specifically one particular blog post that she had called "It's Time to Train the Trainers." It created a lot of controversy all over it's one of those things that kind of blew up with the social media and everything, and we wanted to talk about that a little bit with her. So she came on, was very great. She's in Europe at the moment, and we got a great chance to discuss blogging and her thoughts on "It's Time to Train the Trainers," and yeah, it's going to be a great interview.
Can I say something? We recorded that earlier, and I'm not a dressage person. I'm a horse husband and a radio guy.
But he falls asleep during our episodes sometimes.
That is true. We have to kind of ping him on Skype. Glenn, are you there?
But whether you agree with her, whether you agree with what she said, whether you agree with her quote unquote politics, or how she feels about these certain issues, she is fascinating to listen to.
She is
very articulate.
Yes, very good.
And I enjoyed that interview tremendously, by the way. So I did not zone out once, Philip.
And I wasn't there.
She has a strong opinion.
I'm going to have to listen like everyone else.
Across really well.
Yeah. It was excellent.
And I'm gonna have to listen because Philip did it. I was doing Derby, so Philip, and that was the only time.
Actually, is what it was at that point.
Probably, yeah. I'm not gonna lie. That's not. I had a little time off, Glenn. Leave me alone. But Philip did it when I was, and I'm sad because I really wanted to be on that interview. So I'm gonna listen with everyone else. So I hope you enjoy it.
Well, let's get started right after this word from our first sponsor, and that's the good folks over at Benefab. Let's get started with Darlene Ricker, who, as I said, is going to tell us all about what it's going to be like at the WEG in France.
Are you tired of treating your horse for soreness? Well, then be proactive. Benefab offers you and your horse a natural remedy to joint and muscle stiffness, inflammation, and circulatory deficiencies. Benefab offers a variety of innovative products, like saddle pads and polo wraps and quarter sheets for your horse, and socks and blankets for you. Simply ride in it or wear it, and feel the difference Benefab's ceramic-infused products make. You can check them out online at benefabproducts.com, or you can call them toll-free at 855-957-8378.
Coming up next, we get our first report on the World Equestrian Games, which is coming up very fast. Going to be happening here in October, and actually, it's happening. What am I talking about? It's happening from August 23rd to September 7th. It's a little earlier this year, and it's in France. And we're going to talk to Darlene, who is an equestrian writer who has toured the Normandy venues and interviewed the discipline managers and course designers. She was executive editor for the All-Tech FEI World Equestrian Games in Lexington in 2010, and will be reporting from Normandy for numerous publications. I got to know her when we did the World Equestrian Games radio show for the 2010 Games. Darlene Ricker, let's find out what it's going to be like in France for the World Equestrian Games. Hi, Darlene. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Glenn and Helena. How are you?
We are great. We're so excited to start hearing about the 2014 World Equestrian Games in France. And I know that you have had an opportunity to go over there and take a visit to the venues and things. So we thought we would try today to give the listeners a bit of an overview of what it's going to be like. I know it's going to be different than it was in Lexington in 2010 because of the nature of how spread out it is and everything. So tell us a little bit first, where is it exactly in France, and tell us a little bit about the area.
It's in the Normandy region, basically centered in Caen, the city of Caen. And it is the region is just a blast because there are all kinds of things to do there. It's very historic. And in particular, the Normandy, the Omaha Beach at Normandy, where the D-Day occurred, this is going to be the 70th anniversary.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. And and they're not just celebrating there, they're celebrating all over France. And Normandy, that region of Normandy near the beaches is close to where the endurance will be held at the Bay of Mont Saint Michel.
Huh. That's cool.
And if you'd like to hear about the differences between, Dr. Lyons is fond of saying that it will be the same as the 2010 games, but different. And what that means is that it's the same events, it's the same excitement, different place.
But it is, unlike the Kentucky Horse Park, which is, 1,400 acres of self-containedness, where all the events were held, they're all spread out, aren't they?
They are. There are 5 different off-site venues. All of them, though, even the off-site ones, are within 45 minutes to an hour, most of them. One is an hour and a half off-site, and that's the endurance. The public transportation is fantastic, so it'll be really, really easy to get to them. And it kind of makes it fun, at least that's what I found, because when you go to these different venues, you're going to different regions of France, and you're seeing different things.
Now, you go ahead, Alina.
No. So you get sort of this well-rounded. You get to. Well, this is the nice thing about Europe in general is that you can kind of pack a whole lot of stuff into your horse experience. You can, non-horsey stuff with horsey stuff. But do you have time? What's the timing like in the scheduling?
You can fit time in. They've done a fantastic job with the scheduling, and that can all be found on the website, which is normandy2014.com. It has a breakdown of everything, of all the event schedules, the venues, the transport, the time that it takes to get from one venue to another, how it's best to get there. So there is time, and they've pretty much factored that in so that people can go to different events.
Now, is it... what about transportation and infrastructure, hotels and things like that? Is there a lot of it? How, are you going to drive, have to rent a car if you're coming from, out of the country, out of France? What's the story on that?
It's advised not to rent a car because it's going to be very, very crowded there. We're talking about 14th and 15th century areas, so they have little thin, sometimes cobblestone-type roads, and they're going to be pretty crowded. and some of them will be blocked off. So what's being advised is there's going to be a lot, well, there already is public transportation in place and the infrastructure, which are trains. I mean, some of them will get you to venues in 3 to 10 minutes. Now, if you're going for eventing, if you're going for dressage or cross country, that's about an hour. That's an hour out in the country, and you probably will want a car for that. Mm. Or if you're going to endurance, which is an hour and a half away, I'd recommend that.
Now you got to see the venues. Tell us about them. What are they finished? Are they still in construction phase? And how well organized is this particular group? There's been some WEGs that have had some issues in the past. So
some WEGs.
Yeah, some WEGs. So how would you say, in your opinion, this one's going?
Going like clockwork. The French don't fool around about their international sports events. And even their CEO, Fabien Grobon, was an official for many, many years in the French Open. So they're very much accustomed to putting on the whole event and planning ahead and the whole infrastructure. They've been doing construction on the venues for, a couple of years. Most of them I'd say they're 90% built. Some are all built because they exist. Some of them are racetracks that were already there. The others that are being, and they've put a lot of money into rebuilding them. I can give you a couple of examples. The main stadium, which is Dornano Stadium, which is in Caen, will have show jumping and the dressage and show jumping for eventing, as well as the opening and closing ceremonies. That is a soccer stadium. It's about 20 years old, so they had to do a lot of work on that. And it's absolutely beautiful. There's not a bad seat in the place because it's built low, it is a soccer stadium. So there are no poles in the way. The seating makes you feel almost like you're on the field because it's very low.
It seems that they build the soccer stadiums that way. All the ones you see in the news reports when there's rioting at soccer games, it looks like they build them low, like you're talking about.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the other thing that's really
it'll be the only game that's ever been played in this stadium that there won't be a riot and throwing of things.
Hopefully not.
Those dressage fans.
Yeah. The other thing that's really fun about Dornano Stadium is that, well, number one, it's an open amphitheater, so it's going to be beautiful, especially at night. And the horses are stabled below. It's reminiscent in this one respect of the old Madison Square Garden when the National Horse Show was there. The horses will come out through a tunnel, through a very dark tunnel, and all of a sudden, they're hit with the floodlights and the spotlights and the sound and everything. So that's going to be quite something.
Very dramatic.
For some horses, it's going to be something.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Oh, boy.
I can tell you about a couple of the other venues if you like.
Sure.
Yeah.
Let's see. The Exhibition Center, which is in the center of Caen, is where the reining will be. And that's basically the nerve center of the games because, that is situated right next to the Games Village. And the Games Village itself is 80 acres. And that's where the restaurants and the exhibits and the demonstrations will be. And that center has been completely renovated. And that is very handy. That's right in the center of Caen.
And if you haven't ever looked up Caen, just go to Google Images and put in CAEN France and take a look.
CAEN, what?
It's CAEN. Caen.
It is? I thought it was Caen as in CANNES.
No, it's CAEN France, and
the other one.
It's in the Normandy. Yeah, that's the other one, and it's in the Normandy.
Tells you how much
area.
I know.
But let me tell you, this is old world Europe. When you see the buildings and the infrastructure, what she's saying about it being narrow streets and everything, this is old world Europe. It is really cool.
Hold on a second here. Wow.
And you do feel like it is when you're there, don't you?
Wow. I want to go. Aww.
You pronounce it ka, kind of like K-A-H, ka.
Ka?
Oh,
Okay.
ka. Okay.
That's just how it's pronounced, versus Cannes, which is the one in the south where the film festival is.
Right. Okay.
And as far as Old World, Mont Saint-Michel is probably from the year 1000, might even be 800, and that's right on the English Channel. And it's a walled city, and it still exists, and there are little shops and things in there now, but you can go there, although I will tell you it has 365 steps to get there. But once you're in there, you really do feel like you're back in the medieval times. And I found out it wasn't too glamorous then. You think of castles and candles, and, well, it's pretty dark and creepy in there. And it was a fortress, so there are little teeny windows for protection. And
Yeah, the Renaissance fairs make it look all fun and glamorous, but they did, they were peeing in the corner. So I mean,
right.
What do you mean they were peeing in the corner? They were peeing in the corner. We're gonna move away from peeing for a second, though. I'm briefly. I noticed though when you do a satellite view of Ka, there's a lot of farmland surrounding the city. Mm-hmm. It looks like a lot actually. Is that true? I mean, it looks like what's the I guess what's the climate like there? Is it?
You're right. It looks to me, honestly, a lot like Lexington in that respect. Lots and lots of farms, very large farms. Climate, as is here, is quite unpredictable. It can be kind of extreme. You should really bring warm clothes, even though it's going to be in the summer, because especially at the Endurance, because you're right on the English Channel for the Endurance. And they've pretty much planned for that. That's why they have so many different venues with indoor arenas. So it's going to be fine. And the other thing they planned for that's fabulous in regard to the weather, for example, the driving, okay? The driving is going to be at the Prairie Race Course, which is normally used as a race course, racetrack. They have 30 race meets there a year. And what they've done for the driving, Para is also going to be there. Para is going to be held in the infield on a different date, of course. The driving, they put a lot of money into that, and they've put in a new sand track, which I've been told by the driving team is the coming thing, sort of like poly-track was in horse racing a few years ago. Mm-hmm. Very expensive, and Chester Weber, some other people told me that it really evens the field out because it doesn't matter so much if you're the first horse or the last horse as far as the track being dug up, because it doesn't happen.
And they put the marathon courses at the track as well?
Yes. Huh. Yes, and that's right in the city, right beside the city, actually. So it's very, very handy, and it's close to a train station.
And which track did you say that was?
It's called like the word prairie.
Yeah,
like
that's the one I'm looking at actually on Google Maps. I just found it. Okay.
Uh-huh.
Yep. So I see. You're right. It's surrounded by city.
Uh-huh. And the one venue that I'd really like to tell you about that is just so exciting it's called Haddad du Pin. It's in a city village called Le Pin, Pin, and that is about an hour out of Caen, and that is where the event Dressage and cross country will be held.
Okay.
That is on literally, this was built by Louis XIV. It has a castle. It doesn't have a moat, but it has a castle. It is the home of one of France's 20 national studs. And it's known as the Versailles for horses. It's amazing. It is 2,400 acres, which is twice the size of the Kentucky Horse Park, which is pretty hard to imagine.
Huh.
They've put in new dressage arenas, so the backdrop to the dressage is going to be the castle.
Oh, that's cool.
It's really, the photography opportunities also are going to be amazing. And the cross-country course, gosh, they have put so much work into that, and it's just going to be amazing. They're going to have 3 water complexes, very different style of course design from what we're used to here in the States or what we saw in Rolex last weekend. Because of the terrain, very much. The terrain there is very, very demanding. It's going to be a galloping course. It's going to need a lot of stamina. And Pierre Michelet, who is the course designer, he's designed most of the courses in France, and is also going to be the course designer for the 2016 Olympics, is known for making very, very technical courses, very cross-country courses, lots of angles, lots of skinnies, lots of long gallop stretches in between. So the riders are really having to condition and prepare in a somewhat different way than they have for past World Equestrian Games.
Well, it does look, I've been looking at, I know Helena has too. We've been looking at Google Maps and checking out the pictures and everything, and I think this is going to be, it's going to be a beautiful place to have the WEG, if nothing else. And, you know, one of the things I have heard also is that France is really stepping up to the plate and getting it ready right now. As of April 29th, they're saying that there's been 270,000 tickets that have been purchased, and there's 130,000 left.
Correct.
So there's still plenty of tickets left for anybody that's looking at heading over there. And, of course, Europeans support horse sports much more than we do here in the United States. And there's been 72 nations that have entries, that have indicated that they will have entries in the games, and over 1,000 horses. So I think it should be a lot of fun to watch and a lot of fun to hear about as we go along. Thank you so much, Darlene, for joining us. We really appreciate you giving kind of an overview of the area, and we'll be chatting with you as we go down the line to get more details as you get them as well.
My pleasure, Glenn and Helena, and thanks for having me.
Do you have a website where people can check out, or are you doing anything on Facebook?
I have my own website that
Okay.
has. Oh, actually, yes. Actually, it has a lot of articles. I've written probably, 15 or 20 published articles, advanced articles on the games already,
Okay.
and I'm still writing them, and they appear in various publications, but most of them are also on my website, and that is Equestrian Authors, one word, AUTHORS, sorry about the accent, .com.
Okay. Helena thinks she's at home right now.
Oh yeah, right at home. Yep. I'm following along.
Okay. Very good. Well, we thank you, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Right after this commercial from Equestrian Collections, we have Catherine Haddad.
Hi, Glenn here, and I'm with Debbie from Equestrian Collections, and we have something different to talk about today.
Yeah, today we're going to talk about blogging. We at Equestrian Collections have gathered up a lot of some of the, we used to do a lot of informational write-ups in our Savvy Shopper emails, which I've talked about before. And we have gathered a lot of those together and updated them, and we're writing new blogs that we now have on our website. We have a lot of different subjects. I think you will find it so interesting to find the different things that we have written up, or our experts have written up. We have a veterinarian who is our she's not in-house, but our go-to vet who writes blogs for us. We have breed-specific ones, people who are writing blogs for us on different things. And we just have a lot of information and a very easy way to get it. You just go to our website, www.equestriancollections.com, and up on the top left-hand side of the page, of the home page, or any page, you'll first see our help. You click on help to get our help stuff. And then the next one is blog. And if you click on that, you'll see all kinds of pictures and all kinds of write-ups and a lot of really, really good, up-to-date information. And it's not too long. It's not like, okay, I want to read this article. It goes on for pages and pages. It's very easily readable, and it's long enough to give you the information you need, but short enough that you don't have to spend the whole day reading it. So I suspect that you will find a lot of good information on our blog page, so we invite you to take a look.
And I loved the article. You had an article in there, A Guy's Guide to English Writing Show Gear, which I thought was absolutely excellent because we don't know what to match, and that kind of thing. So, but this really does give you a good guide to all the different products that you have that are great for English guys writing.
That's right.
Yeah.
We're trying to come up with lots of ideas that people would be interesting, like the tips and tricks to bathing your horse. Who wrote that? Oh, look there. It's my horse. So I say you go ahead and take a look at our blogs because I think you'll find a lot of good stuff there.
EquestrianCollections.com.
Well, I'm really pleased to have Catherine Haddad, Grand Prix rider and trainer, on the show again with us today. Hi, Catherine. How are you doing?
I'm good, Philip. How are you?
I'm doing well. Well, we wanted to have you on the show again just because you had made the big trip over to Europe to do some competing again. And
Yes.
I was going to take the opportunity to talk to you. You just competed last week, what is that, at Hagen, a big show in Germany, and wanted to ask you how it went and how your horse is doing and how your travels went.
Okay. Well, we all traveled very well, fortunately. Myself, the dog, the horse. Hot Mail seemed to have gotten off the plane and settled in real quickly and got back into training very quickly. And it was a little bit like he landed and he looked left and he looked right and he said, "Holy crap, I landed in Europe." And he picked his withers up and he made his hind legs faster and he just got about 10% better, although the judges don't see it that way. The ride is definitely what I've been trying to achieve. So I'm really excited because we had a great show in Hagen. You can't tell that by the score. Unfortunately, I had one major error in the canter tour, which knocked me down about 50 points from what I estimate. And you have to understand that when you're showing in Europe, I got, I think, 68.75 or something like that. But within the next 8 placings above me, there was a quarter of a percentage point. So I think the difference in points from 8th to 2nd or 3rd was 23 points. And I lost 50 on one score. So, that's okay. I shouldn't have made the mistake, but it was,
in the
it makes a huge difference. Especially when the placings are so close and so tight. I felt like the horse really put in the best test that he ever did. It was really in front of my feet, in front of my leg, out to my hand, super connection, very forward-thinking test. Finally, with the flying changes, really on board and really ridden up and through the horse's neck and withers. And a Piaffe Visage tour that I've been really honing and working on and trying to produce in the arena for 3-4 months now, and I finally got it there. It was right where it was supposed to be, so I was very excited. A couple of the judges saw the difference, saw the improvement. I got a few 8s on the test. It's tough to do in Europe. You've got to convince and double convince, so that's why I'm here.
Yeah, I mean, do you think that the more you get exposure in Europe, the more you can get the points that you deserve? Is that the feeling and the purpose in going over there?
I'm nearly sure of that because. And generally speaking, throughout the winter in Florida, I got better points from the European judges than I did from the American judges, and that was true at Hagen also. So I think that staying on this continent and competing on this continent is the right thing to do for me and my horse.
Excellent. Well, so it's great that he knows he has to step his game up when he steps on European soil. That's very exciting.
It definitely felt that way. Yeah, definitely felt that way. I was pretty excited. I'm excited about this horse in general. He is the best horse I've ever had, and he's getting better every single day. Not every single week, not every single horse show, but every single day the horse is improving in his work.
Awesome. And when is the next opportunity for you to bring him out?
Well, we leave for Austria. I think it's on the 11th of May. The show is from the 15th to the 18th, but we have to travel 2 days to get there because we're going down to Graz, which is like the furthest corner of Austria from where I am right now. So it'll take us, it'll be a 2-day trip. And the show is the 15th to the 18th, and that's at the Glock Performance Horse Center. Glock is the sponsor of Edward Gall and Hans-Peter Minderhut, and also one of the largest and most successful manufacturers of handguns, of course, in the world.
Yeah, kind of a strange combination of handguns and horses, but an excellent sponsor for sure, and a big supporter of dressage. So that's awesome. So we wish you luck when you go.
Well, thank you. I've heard a lot of really exciting things about this horse show. I've never been to this show before. It's a fairly new show. And I've heard that in the Riders Lounge and the VIP Lounge, they actually have a dog salon where you can get your dog groomed.
Oh, yeah. Well, every rider has a dog, right? And so it's great that they acknowledge that. And that'll be awesome. I'm sure your dog will enjoy it.
I'm sure he will.
Well, that's great. Well, the second reason for bringing you on the show today, Catherine, is that you write a blog for Chronicle of the Horse. And
I do.
And I saw, and there was a big publicity, a lot of talk about a certain blog that you wrote last July, I believe it was. It was a blog that was entitled "It's Time to Train the Trainers," and it created a lot of controversy up in the internet. And I had a quick chance to talk to you about it when we met in Florida, and I thought it would be a nice opportunity to bring you on the show and talk about it with everyone.
Sure.
To our listeners, because I think there was a lot of controversy around it for no reason. I think there was people thought you were really down.
I don't know about that. I mean, what's interesting, because I had some people approach me to talk about it too, which is fine, because I'm never hesitate to talk about what I write, and I prefer that people discuss it with me if they're unhappy. I actually had a couple of rather, what do you call it? What do they call them on the forum? I think it's the BNTs, big name trainers. I had a couple approach me and say what a horrible thing it was that I was being so down on amateurs, and was I crazy, and how could I insult people like that? And after talking to both of these people for only 2 or 3 minutes, it actually came out that they didn't even read the blog. They were just responding to something that they heard from somebody else. So, and unfortunately, I'll tell you, I have a problem in that when I write, I'm very direct, but also in my life, I'm very direct, very straight person. And that
really comes across. Yeah.
Yeah.
In the training and in discussion about the horses as well, and everything. So.
Sure. In every walk, every step that I take in life, I'm very direct, very honest, very truthful, which sometimes is hard to live with, and I know this. And when I write, I think I'm the same way. And sometimes I'm seeing something from a perspective that is very, very clear to me. But unless I really take the time to think about every angle, sometimes it's left open to misinterpretation. So, in fact, like my favorite part of the blog, this is really my favorite part of the blog, is I actually got to use my favorite catchphrase, which is rabid garden snail. And people thought that I was calling amateurs rabid garden snails, when in fact what I was doing, yes, it actually got Googled like, I don't know, 100,000 times on the day that blog came out. Can garden snails, are they going to get rabies or something like that? But I was not calling amateurs rabid garden snails, but I was railing against the fact that often when I go to clinics, I see people progressing at the rate of a rabid garden snail, which is very slowly. And I'm not only another inside secret here. It's not an inside secret. Anyone who knows me will tell you this. I'm not only straightforward, I'm an impatient person. If I see something that I can fix or that I can change, I want it done now. And I'm like that when I teach, and I'm like that in clinics. So if I step into a clinic situation and I know that I can take 10 riders on Monday and 10 riders on Tuesday and fix a couple of major things that are wrong in their riding, then I walk away from the clinic asking myself, why didn't their own trainer do that? Why do I have to fly from New Jersey or Florida or wherever to Colorado or San Francisco or something like this? Why do I have to step off the plane and use those words in order to get those results? Why can't their own trainer do it? And that was a little bit my attitude, and I did have attitude, I admit it, when I wrote the blog. Because I feel like my skills, it's not that I don't have a good skill set for that level of rider who needs very basic things changed. I just feel like the whole country would come more forward more quickly if we can improve the basic skills of our trainers, number one, so that they could improve the basic skills of all of our riders, number two. So I feel like we don't have enough trickle-down effect in this country. And a lot of people were very angry that I said it. I also had a lot of people come to me and say, hey, somebody's got to say it. And I started talking to my assistant trainer. He's my berighter. I don't like the term assistant trainer. Patrick Tischkelar, who had trained in Virginia for a very long time and is a Dutchman. And we started chatting about it because there was so much of an explosion on the forums about what I had said. And we were both kind of looking at each other like, why are people surprised to hear this? And then we began to understand we both grew up in Europe. And in Europe, there is quite an advanced system, both in the Netherlands and in Germany and in England. France also not so much, but many of the European countries, Sweden, Denmark, they actually have programs for training trainers, and they're very strict certification parameters that follow that. So if you want to grow up to be a trainer in Europe, you have to study for it. You have to take exams for it. You have to gain experience for it. A German berighter, for instance, does not get his certification until he has worked for 3 years in the professional job under the supervision of someone else. Takes his test, passes his test. The tests are very inclusive and very technique oriented. So you can't actually become a trainer in Europe without, number one, knowing how to lunge a horse in the proper equipment. Number two, knowing how to fit cross-country gallop boots to a horse, whether you're going to go cross-country or not. Number three, how to jump. Number four, how to do a dressage test. All of these things are included in the testing. So what you start with in Europe is a baseline of instructors that are tested and certified to give professional instruction to other people. And unfortunately, although we're starting certification programs in the United States, and the USDF has a certification program, what we don't have are the schools who support these people who want to become professional trainers. And I didn't realize that. I was kind of complaining about this endemic problem that I was seeing throughout the country, because remember, I was gone for 20 years. And even though I did a lot of clinics in America, I did them all in the same place, and they were people who kind of grew up riding with me. So I never really saw what was out there in the areas where I hadn't been teaching. And I started to see that in this last year when I literally, I was, I was injured, so I couldn't ride very much, so I traveled everywhere teaching. And it didn't really occur to me why we had a lower level of instruction in this country. And I know that even when people hear me say this on radio, they're not going to forgive me for saying it, but it actually is true. There is a lower level of instruction at the basic level than there is in Europe. And I would like to see that change. Yeah, I would like to see that change. So if I sound adamant when I write or angry, people said I was angry. I wasn't angry, but I was adamant. And it does disturb me when I go somewhere and I think, this could so easily change if people just had a little bit more knowledge. Well, where do you get that knowledge? You get it from schools. And we don't have the schools in America that do berighter certification or riding license certification. Now, there are a few with riding programs, but we don't have that nationwide level. Let me put it to you like this. What if anyone could become a dentist without going to school and taking their boards, their dental board? I'm assuming they take dental boards. You know what I mean? Their dental tests.
Yeah.
What if anyone could?
Very similar in every profession that there's a certain level before you can graduate, and they send you out into the world to either help people or to do a job to make sure there's a standard out there. There's not the same thing in riding, dressage riding, and teaching. So. There's not much to say that this trainer is good and this one is not good, and so on and so forth. But I think,
and I really feel like it would help.
Sorry. You go ahead, Catherine.
Yeah. Well, I just feel like we could really change the whole face of our sport, not only in dressage but also in jumping and eventing. We could change the whole face of equestrian sport in the United States if we developed an across-the-board nationwide certification program that was supported by schools who prepared people to take the tests, because it would just raise the baseline of knowledge in the country. So, I do know that I insulted some people. Probably there were more trainers insulted than anyone else, although somehow the amateurs...
That's what surprised me. It was a lot of amateurs that were really like, Catherine hates amateurs. I mean, if you're a low-level instructor, I could see you maybe being insulted, because that was the point of the thing. I mean, it was entitled, "It's time to train the trainers," not "It's time to tell the amateurs that they're bad at riding." So, I mean, I was confused a little bit about the response from the blog as well, and that's why I wanted to I talked to you a little bit about before and wanted to bring you on the show because our listener base is adult amateurs, and I don't think that you were down on them, at all. So I just wanted to kind of try and clear it up a little bit.
Well, I wasn't, and I'm not.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah, you teach a lot of amateurs as well, right?
Yeah, 99% of the people that I teach are amateurs, whether it's in clinics or in my own training business at home. So, and I don't think that, that's something else too, because I have a European who trains with me who is not a professional rider, who wants to become a professional rider. And every time I say to her, why don't you just become the best amateur you can be and make your money somewhere else? She looks at me like I'm crazy. So there's also, remember again, I grew up in Germany. Well, I say grew up. I never really grew up, but I became more mature in Germany. And in Germany, the difference between an amateur and a professional is where you make your money. I'm a professional rider because I make my money riding and training horses. And so when I use the term amateur, I'm talking about someone who doesn't for me, an amateur is defined. Yeah, because their career is not in riding. Okay, so first of all, there are a lot of people who ride. Some people ride even better than me who are still amateurs, and I have nothing. Amateur is not a dirty word to me. Let's put it that way. And I probably interchanged the word amateur and beginner a couple times in the blog. I also don't have a problem, by the way, teaching ranked beginners. I really don't. A lot of them come into my clinics, and there's a lot of people in my life who I have taught from the beginning, meaning the first time they threw their leg over a horse. I have no problem with that whatsoever. What I don't like is when people are sent to me who have been riding for years and years and years, and I look at them and I see them struggling and I see how frustrated they are, and that's not being changed by the local people that they're working with. And that's nobody's fault. I just feel like there needs to be a way to raise the standard. So I am absolutely on the side of amateurs. I mean, I couldn't live without them. Amateurs in all around the world, it's the amateurs who make the sport go around. So, but that's why I went and got certified. That's why I keep trying to hone my skill. And still to this day, I'm learning and honing my skill because I don't want to take a paycheck if I'm not doing the best job I possibly can. So if somebody comes to me, I want to have answers. I want to have more than one tool in my pocket that's going to help them do what they need to do on a horse. And I feel like some of our instructors and some of our trainers throughout the country have a very limited toolbox. And that's because they don't have any kind of formal education, and they've only been learning from eye, which is good. I mean, I learned a lot of what I know from the eye. They've been stealing with their eyes, and they've been trying to get a few lessons here and there from people who know more than they do, which is great. But then I ask myself, where else in the United States do you get the kind of education that I got when I went to Europe? And this was what Patrick was actually able to add for me. He said, you can't, the way we were educated in Europe, you can't get that education in America. And then it suddenly dawned on me, I'm the stupid one because I never thought of that.
Yeah, it's a different thing. I think a little bit as well. There's a talent drain that goes on in America and Canada too. We're served with the same thing. Where if you're a professional or are wanting to be professional in the U.S. and you come from small town Kansas or Arizona I don't know the geography as well, but you have to move to go and get that education, and in a lot of cases you never go back, right? Because there's not the competitions, there's not the shows around you. There's not enough business for you to make a living, in the less populated areas, and that a lot of the best trainers end up moving to the East Coast. They end up going to or California or Florida where all the shows are, and then they're not available to their amateurs where they came from. I think that's a huge problem and a little
Also,
bit,
yeah.
on the next level, either they go to Europe and then they're in Europe and training in Europe and they're not available for teaching in the U.S. And unfortunately, then the amateur in small town, Kansas, Arizona, all these places where you were traveling to teach, has not the great trainer available close to them. In Europe, that's not the case, right? You can go to,
Right.
Olympian professional barns within a couple of hours, depending on where you live in Holland, in Germany, and Denmark. Like the distances are a huge problem.
Yeah, but yes and no. And that was another point that I made in the blog that really irritated some people. And that's that as an average rider, like right now, by the way, I'm sitting in a car at a horse show in the Netherlands. I'm just a kind of a very small local show. And I'm seeing a lot of riding that, I could see anywhere in the United States. There's a couple good horses, a couple good riders. There's also some horses that I don't like so much, and there's some riding that I don't like so much. But the majority of the people at this local show would never dream of calling Edward Gall and asking for a riding lesson, because that's not done here. What they would do is go to their local instructor for help. And if they weren't getting enough help from their local instructor, then they might go 20 kilometers to the east or 20 kilometers to the west, or to someone who was winning, let's say, intermediate 2 at small shows like this. So they would step it up a level, and they would never dream of going to a top professional for help until they had reached a certain level of riding ability. Now, okay, they have the people to go to in this country, and also in Germany and the other European countries. They have the stepping stones. They have the stepping blocks. And that is, again, very important, because you know what? Edward Gall is only one person. How many people can he train? How many people can one person train? And that's why you have to train your trainers and produce more trainers, so that they can go out there and provide a middle level of education for people who are either just starting in the sport or have well started, and they're really looking to improve themselves. So you can't go to, how do I want to put this? Because people also accuse me of being a snob. I am probably the least snobbish person in the sport. I started with very little means, and I'll teach anybody. You don't have to have a big pocketbook to come to me to train. You do have to be able to pay for your education, because I had to pay for mine. But I'm not someone who weeds out the poor people and takes only the wealthy people of the world in training. When you come to me, you have to, number one, want to learn, and number two, work hard. And then that's okay with me. That's how you get an education from me. But again, I'm only one person, and I can't teach everybody, which is why for me, I start to think, okay, why then am I teaching a clinic full of people who are just learning to sit the trot, when I could be teaching 10 trainers who want to be better at their craft? Because that would extrapolate and help other people in their region. The other problem that we run into in America is it's a very parochial kind of situation in many areas. Trainers don't want to come to clinics to learn to train, because they don't want to be exposed to being taught in public. Some trainers, within, you can have 5 trainers within a 50-mile radius, and they don't talk to each other.
Right.
That doesn't happen in Europe, and this is so hard for me to explain to people sometimes, but there is such a cooperation here compared to what we have in the sport in the United States. People really work together here, even if they don't like each other. They'll all show up at the same symposium. They'll all show up at the same training session. They'll all exchange ideas. I mean, I go to the International Dressage Riders Club meetings, the International Dressage Trainers Club meetings. There's people I don't like at the meetings. There's some people I don't care to see on a horse, and there's other people who I really admire and who I try to emulate in my riding. But we all sit at the same table, and we all exchange ideas, and we all try to learn from each other. So I wish, if there was one thing I could wish for my country and the trainers that we have in it right now, is that we could find a way to learn to work together better, because it would bring the whole sport forward, which is what I feel obviously very passionately about.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I've experienced that European, where competitors don't see their competition as against them as an adversary, and you can use your friends and around your area as eyes on the ground, as you don't have to you don't have to give all your clients
Absolutely.
to them. And yeah, I mean, I think, and
No.
there's a certain level of respect that we're all in this to train horses, and we all love dressage, and we have that in common. So why not use that instead of just, putting people down and saying, oh, that person's a terrible trainer, and I think we all have skills to bring to the table and ideas to bring to the table, and like you said, it would help US and Canada a little bit the same thing a lot if we all work together and just brought our own country's level to up to the European standard, and you see all those trainers over there, even though week in and week out they're competing against each other, they're helping each other because they see it as a nationalistic pride thing when they all do well, right? And I think that's really important.
That's true,
something
too.
Yeah, that's really
And, well, and
important.
even at the highest level of the sport, at say World Cup Tour here in Europe, which I've done many times, it's the same sort of 15 to 20 competitors at every World Cup qualifier, and you get the feeling like, I've loaned a noseband to a competitor that broke his in the warm up. I've borrowed hay from Isabelle Vert. I've had people help me on the warm up who hardly even knew me. Like if I looked over and asked somebody how's the left hind, they would tell me. I've had the German national trainer give me a couple words on the warm-up because he saw that my trainer wasn't there that day. People are not afraid to give a little help to somebody else because they know that they might win today and the other guy might win tomorrow. Yeah. But it's a competitive atmosphere, but a very professional competitive atmosphere.
And supportive.
So,
I mean, the next person doesn't have to do worse for you to do better. I think that's an important point.
That's right.
When we ride, we're not immediately competing against each other. We're, not like hockey or basketball where you're scoring goals or making baskets against the other person. You're just riding the best you can. You're doing the best you can with your own horse, and so is that person. And for you to beat them or to do a little bit better than them, they don't have to get worse, right? You just have to get better. That's all.
That's right. You just have to beat yourself. You have to, every time you have to do better than you did the last time.
Yeah.
So, I do realize that I'm often too blunt and a little bit too direct when I write things, but I'm pretty much, I don't want to say fearless, but I'm pretty close to fearless when it comes to putting stuff out there. I'm like, what's the worst that can happen? A couple of people get pissed off at me. Okay, fine. The two people that I talked to who were so angry with me, like I said, they didn't even read the blog. They just heard about it. So I thought, okay, well, that doesn't hold any water with me. If you're going to come to me and complain about my writing, then you better read it first. And I've gone back and read that blog several times since, and every time I read it, I think, that's interesting because I don't really see myself insulting amateurs in that blog.
Yeah, and
I find
again,
myself.
Like I'll say again, it confused me what people were they were writing in. They were raging about it all over the internet, and I read it and I said, oh, okay. There you go. Yeah, the wrong people are mad.
Well, I was actually rooting for the amateur in that blog, and that might have been hard to extrude from it. But I was basically saying, look, come on, if you're going to take people's money, then you better know how to train them, and it can't be that they just come to you every week.
For them. Yeah.
Absolutely, I can't stand it if I watch the same rider go to the same trainer every week and not improve. This makes me crazy. And some people will say, yeah, but they just they like to ride and they're just coming out to have a good time. I'm like, great, well they can have a good time while they're improving.
Yeah, or they don't have to pay for training if they're not getting training, right?
That's the thing, and I really feel that if people are going to hand you a check, then you better have done a damn good job. And I feel about that in every profession. Yeah. I'm not going to go to a mechanic who has never worked on an Audi if I'm driving an Audi. I'm not going to go to a dentist who doesn't have any kind of certification. I'm not going to go to a neurosurgeon who's never trained. Yeah. So, I want the best people, best professionals in my life when I need a professional for something. And I would hope that in the horse industry, we start to expect more and ask more from our trainers as well. And I have to tell you, I heard from a lot of trainers and I heard from a lot of people being trained that they were happy to hear what I wrote. It made their lessons better. It made their trainers step up to the plate. And I know that in the places where I do clinics, all of my trainers stepped up to the plate. They all got better, and their students got better. All around me, there was this incredible surge, even in my own stable, of people saying, boy, we have to step up to the plate and put more knowledge out there. We have to try harder. So that was kind of cool. That was really neat.
That's excellent
thing
when
that
something good comes out of it. Well, I enjoy reading your blog all the time. I hope that you keep writing and being honest and putting stuff out there that people can talk about and create a little discussion. I mean, I think a lot of positive things came out of that blog, even if there were some people who felt really negative about it. So I appreciate your writing, and I know that a lot of other people do too. And there has to be discussion, otherwise things don't get better, right? There has to be at least somebody talking about it and thinking of solutions to problems. So I thank you for talking with us today and coming on the show. And hopefully you'll come on again, and we can talk more about your blogs, because there's lots of interesting stuff that you put out there in your writing. And we wish you luck and all the success in competitions coming up. And we hope that you come back soon and keep teaching, keep bringing your experiences to all levels of professionals and amateurs and everything. Thank you so much.
Okay, Philip. Thank you.
Well, we really thank Catherine for taking the time out from her busy schedule to talk to us all the way from Holland, which is where she was. And I think, give something to think about. It's great to have somebody who gives some discussion points for us, especially on the show, to give us content, and also overall people have to to think and discuss and have different ideas in dressage. So it's great that she puts that blog out there. I recommend that everybody reads her blog, whether you agree or disagree. Get into a discussion.
Yeah,
it's awesome.
But I think too, Philip, real quick, I think it's important because it's come up. I think if you are getting instruction in general, I think it's very important that you understand the credentials that your instructor has. Or if you're going to listen to for a lecture, or for example, that you really understand the credentials and that you really aren't just listening to anybody that's run of the mill.
Well, don't say that, Reese, because we have listeners to the show, and
You're funny, Philip.
And we want them to keep listening.
We want them to keep listening.
So don't.
But we really
strike everything Reese just said.
Right.
Forget what she said. She does not know what she's talking about.
Thank you
we'll
very
have to
much.
cut that.
Yeah, we're going to have to put that in the blooper reel.
That's in the blooper reel. No, but I really am truly serious. I think it is important that you listen and you make sure that where you're getting instruction is from a certified person or for somebody that has some credentials and that really understands. Price is not always the point that you should. I hear people, well, she's down the road and she's pretty inexpensive. Well, so I think I have not listened to the Catherine interview, but I do definitely want to say that. I think that's really important to say that when you look for instruction, that you are finding people that are certified or have credentials in general. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Okay.
Continue, Philip.
All right. Well, we got lots of listener kind of emails and stuff that I kind of wanted to get to, and have time to do that. So first up is Lori, who writes into the Facebook page. She was the one who asked about. We had a big discussion about buying a horse, and she was the one that asked us to talk about that. So that's great. That gave us a little bit of topic to talk about. And she just thanks us for spending the time on the show to talk about horse shopping. It was a great overview from you and I, she says, and very helpful as she gets started to prepare her finances, etc., for making her first purchase. Love hearing the support for adult amateurs and points on evaluating an off-the-track thoroughbred as well. Very interesting. Keep up the fantastic work. So that makes us feel good. We get a little bit
we love that.
Yeah, a little bit of love, which leads me into an email that we got from one of our longtime listeners, Vera. Rubinus, no, I can't say. I'm sorry, Vera. I have a hard time with last names, and I always ruin them. And
it's Vera.
It's Vera,
who's a wonderful listener.
She writes in. We talk about stuff all the time. She wanted to bring up the point that was a good one, and we didn't talk about in this discussion, and might be a great way to wrap up the discussion. Is about horse shopping, and we need to talk about what are we going to do with the horse 5-10 years down the road when it's ready to retire, or so what do you think about that? What do you think about that, Reese?
Yeah, I think that's a great point that Vera brings up that we didn't talk about, and I think both Philip and I are passionate about this, and And I think you have two choices. I think you need to have a plan when you buy a horse of any level. What is
How
the
long do you want to keep
Yeah,
it?
how long do you want to keep
At what
that?
point is it time to think about
Mhm.
either the next horse
Right.
or not riding or whatever you're going to do? There has to be a long-term plan as well. I think fear brings up a great
Absolutely.
point. Yeah.
Well, and I think you have to be honest with yourself and say, do I want to retire this horse for the rest of his life? Or, I've essentially done what I needed to do with this horse. And is it time to sell my horse and move on? And I've had students that have done that. And from a financial standpoint, I've just had, especially young riders, where the parents are like, I am not retiring this horse for the next 10 years.
Right.
And I respect that. Like, I absolutely respect that. And we move to sell that horse, and we talk about that. And then I am personally retiring 3 horses right now, which on a small farm, that creates a little bit of an issue. I am retiring my mom's. She literally was the inductee of the Mara Hall of Fame for the International Hunter Futurity. First one. Her name is Magician. She will live here till it is time. There are days sometimes I'm like, I don't know, Madge. Her name's Magic, and she will live here. She babysits actually my 2-year-old, so she very much has a job here, and will always be taken care of. She gets as good of care that I can provide her, and I also have my 2 FEI mares. My mare I talk a lot about her, Jamaica. She was my first Grand Prix horse, a really serious Grand Prix horse, won a few Grand Prix in Florida, and she's the mom of 3 of my kids, because I don't have children. So my 4-legged kids are my children. She's the mom. So she will always have a home here. She will always be taken care of. And then I have Sammy, who was my schoolmaster for years and really helped, support my business over time, and was a wonderful workhorse for me. She was as valuable as Jamaica was for my business. And so I feel very, very passionately that those 3 horses will be retired. One, the 2 mares, Meep and Sammy, are at a friend's farm, and they are retired there, and Magic lives here on the farm. So I'm very passionate.
It's a tricky problem.
Yeah.
Well, when you don't have your own farm,
and you don't have your own farm,
maybe you want to
right.
buy another horse, or then
Sure.
but you've got the expense of boarding a retiree, right? For who knows how
absolutely.
long, right? I mean,
Yeah,
horses
I don't
can have a
know.
long life, and you want them to have a long life, but it can create some financial hardship if you didn't plan on that, right?
Right, and I think
it's for sure something to think about, and
Yeah.
and
Philip,
well,
you
I
have
mean,
one too.
there's also the situation that your 7-year-old horse that you bought 2 years ago, gets an injury, and then what do you do, right? This, you have to kind of, it happens with horses, right? And
Yeah.
then you can no longer ride them, so there has to be a retirement plan, or you gotta, kind of figure things out. So yeah, Vera, it's very important to think about what's the
think
end
about
game
it.
here. When is it time to sell the horse if you don't want to retire it yourself? Before something catastrophic happens.
Yeah. And I think the other thing is too, I mean, the question to insure your horse or not to insure your horse. I mean, I think that wasn't something we were going to talk about, but I think that that is a good question. And I have different views on my farm. I choose to insure my horses. I feel like I don't want to be making a decision on if I can afford the colic surgery or not on my way to the clinic. So for that, I personally insure them. But I have clients that say, I'm not going to do that. And Philip, I don't know what your take on that is.
It depends. It depends on the horse, but I think emergency surgery insurance, is important. And there's all kinds of different insurance you can get at different price points, and there's loss of use insurance, and you can get insurance for everything, right? Whether it's horses or cars or houses, and you can. I don't believe in kind of blanket over insuring everything. I mean, you have to look at what's the cost, what's the value of the horse, and what are you going to do. But yeah, I do like the emergency surgery.
I mean, for me,
again, so that it's not a question about money when it comes down to that kind of.
And that's
decision,
for me. I sleep a little better with that and knowing that. So I have to build that when I buy a horse. I mean, I have to build that into the cost of the horse along with the vetting. So I think it's important And then, your decision to retire or not to retire. I mean, I think that needs to be in the decision. Or are you, a lot of my amateurs, struggle with, am I going to sell this horse or am I not going to sell this horse? And, I think that you just need to think about it when you buy a horse. So that's sort of, I think, both Philip and Philip, you're also retiring a horse. So
I have a retired mare. I mean, she gave us 3 beautiful foals, and I rode her for a few years, and my mom rode her for a few years, and now she's retired. And I don't live on my own farm at the moment, so yeah, she's a monthly cost. She's at a nice retirement farm that doesn't have all the bells and whistles as the training farm, but yeah, I mean, it's just something that we kind of knew that we had to accept, that's if we're going to retire a horse, that's what we have to do. And we'll pay for her for forever, for as long as she's around.
I mean, that's my view too.
It's part of being a responsible owner to have a plan for that. So
yeah, absolutely. And I think horses that work hard for you over many years, but again, I have had clients that say, yeah, the horse has got to be sold. I'm not doing that. And I respect that too. And I do respect that they're thinking ahead and say, I don't want 20 years or 10 years or whatever.
Right. I always bring it up with clients that are thinking like, should I buy a schoolmaster? It'd be really nice to be able to ride the pre-St. George movements, for example, and learn from that. And at that point, I always have that discussion. Well, a schoolmaster is great, but you got to think, if you're buying a 15, 17-year-old horse, how long would you like to have this horse? Would you like to ride it for a year and then maybe sell it on to somebody else? But if you have it for 3-4 years, you're really thinking about having to retire that horse. And if you can accept that and that's why those horses don't cost all the money that a 10-year-old pre-St. George horse will cost, because somebody's got to be responsible and retire it and make sure that horse, has obviously worked really hard throughout its life and at the end of the working career, you might be able to you might have that horse for another 10 years or so, or who knows how long, but yeah, and at that point, the client or whoever I'm talking to says, "Oh, well, if I'm paying for a horse, I'd like to be able to ride it." So
sure,
makes a lot of sense.
So great question, Vera. Thank you for bringing that up. That we didn't add that to our discussion about buying a horse, but I think it's definitely something to chat about and to think about. And again, as you're buying a horse, open discussion with your trainer is really important. And these are all things that are good questions.
Keep the communication going, right?
Yep. Yeah. Philip and I aren't offended by these questions, so bring it on.
Great
so
stuff to talk about. Yeah, because it all plays a part in our role as trainers and guidance for people. We want to think about all aspects of buying a horse or owning a horse or riding or all these things. So it's great. Before we finish here, Reese, I wanted to bring up another email. We got a few emails.
I love it. We love emails. Bring them. We love it.
This email is actually from a listener who had a training question that we covered. The listener's name is Jess, and she was talking about, I think it's a thoroughbred mare, and we had a big discussion about stretching. She sent us some video of the horse before, and that led us to a great discussion about stretching in a previous episode. And so she sent us a little update.
Yes,
she just
it's
says
awesome.
Here, Jess Boston just says, I want to thank you and Reese again for taking the time to answer my questions about my mare. It was last December. A friend took some video of her trotting today, and I just thought I'd send it to you. We went back to the basics as you suggested, and she's made a ton of progress in her contact and movement, I think. She's not curling behind the bit anymore, and she still offers some stretch sometimes, but we put more boundaries around it. She's a lot of fun to ride. Thanks for your help. So that's great. And she sent this updated video, and the horse and the rider look great. Really big improvement in the horse, I have to say. And she looks like she's going really well, and it's nice to see. So again, it makes us feel good if we've helped you a little bit in your riding. Send us, a video or some email, and gives us a great reason for doing the show, and helps us think that we're doing a good job. So
exactly.
Thank you very much,
yes,
Jess.
Thank you very much. Good job. Keep up the good work. Keep it up. Well, everybody, we've enjoyed the show today, and you can find our show notes and links to today's guests on our website, dressageradio.com. Like us on Facebook, just search Dressage Radio Show. Follow us on Twitter @Horse Radio. My website is maplecrestfarmky.com, and my email is reese@horseradionetwork.com.
You can find me at philipparksequestrian.com, and my email is philip@horseradionetwork.com. I'd like to thank our sponsors, Benefab and Equestrian Collections this week, for allowing us to put on a great show. And don't forget to check out all the other shows on the Horse Radio Network at horseradionetwork.com.
Everybody, keep your heels down and your shoulders back, and we'll talk to you next week.